Today's our guest is a man who doesn't need introduction. Mayor Willie Brown, his institution, and a brand. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Mayor Brown.
Thank you.
Let's start with 67 seconds fire round question. I'll give you the names, non-particular order, and you just one word that comes to mind. Denise Hale.
Oh, an elegant woman in the best of all the worlds.
Barack Obama.
Quite a lawyer and an okay president.
Jay Leno.
Funny as all hell, owns too many cars.
Jesse Jackson.
It's too bad that his health is failing him. We lose if he loses.
Oprah Winfrey.
Elegant, should have been a candidate for public office somewhere.
Rosa Parks.
Rode a bus and is pictured on my wall.
So that was the beginning. George Shultz.
Genius.
Antonio Mariani.
Don't know.
Lorenzo Petroni.
Was the best of all of the restaurateurs for years, from my law school days until he passed away. Fed me at least once or twice a week.
Hillary Clinton.
Another genius.
Queen Elizabeth.
Elegant woman who visited me in Sacramento, lived longer than most monarchs.
Sammy Davis Jr.
My buddy.
Nancy,
Came often to see me. Probably the most talented entertainer I ever met.
Nancy Pelosi.
The ultimate as a politician. I'd love her skills at raising money in particular.
Reverend Cecil Williams.
Client, a friend, a fellow Texan. And he made the liberal progressive movement in San Francisco really work.
Joseph Alioto.
A lawyer's lawyer.
Gavin Newsom.
An appointee of mine whom I believe will be president.
Sharon Stone.
Beautiful.
Maya Angelou.
Cable car driver.
Larry Ellison.
Another smart guy ahead of his time in the tech world.
Kamala Harris.
Hopefully, it's not over for her.
Ronald Reagan.
A good friend, signed bills that I handed to him.
Donald Trump.
Weird.
Dianne Feinstein.
My candidate in 1969, she won, and she continued to win until she died.
Larry King.
Loved to be interviewed by Larry on more than one occasion.
Herb Cain.
Maybe one of my best friends, and smart as all hell, and prompted me to want to be the kind of journalist he was.
Bill Stashford.
Elegantly attired in Wilkes-Barre clothes as I speak.
Wonderful. That was a quick round. Now we're a few questions that you can take your time to answer. Who is allowed to call you rookie?
Anybody who knows me from Texas, knows me of Texas.
Is there a little boy from Mineola who worked to save up to buy the first bike somewhere inside of you?
Mineola was a place I lived where I was literally raised and directed by two women. Minnie Boyd, my mother, and Anna Lee Collins, my grandmother. Those are the women that steered me to the seat to answer your questions.
What advice did these two women give you when you left for San Francisco?
Be sure to join church. Be sure to enroll in college. And get a job and pay your own way.
Your first impression of San Francisco when your Uncle Itzy met you at the bus stop.
I must tell you that Itzy picked me up at the train facility in Emeryville because there was no trains into San Francisco. I'd never been on a bridge before with lights. When I got on the Bay Bridge, now the Willie Brown Bridge, I was so fascinated that when I came off the bridge, didn't know I was off the bridge because the street lights of San Francisco looked like bridge lights. And I thought this was a city of bridges. Not till the next day did I realize that those were just street lights. I'd never seen a street light.
You want to be a math teacher. What happened?
San Francisco State became the school that I could enroll in. Alphabetically, I was next to a guy named John Burton, who told me about his brother, who was a politician, and invited me to go with him to join the Young Democrats. And that's what I did. And I never, ever again picked up a pencil to count anything once I became a politician.
My condolences on passing John Burton. I understand passed over the weekend.
My buddy, Mr. Burton, passed Sunday morning shortly after 9 a.m. this week.
Incredible, incredible friendship and service, both of them. Did you enjoy UC Hastings School of Law?
Did I do what?
Did you enjoy studying law at Hastings, UC Hastings?
Oh, at Hastings? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Because it was a school that I entered and instantly got a job through the school and working in part for the school that ultimately led to me being able to pay all of my high cost education system. It also enabled me to develop expanded relationships from the political world introduced to me by John Burton into the world that I now continue to occupy.
Can you describe your first case after law school?
It was a case involving a divorce, and it was a case that Terry Francois, whose office I was working in, had. He didn't want to do the case for whatever reason, and he sent me to do it. I had never obviously been a trial lawyer. I was just out of law school, and the job that I had gotten, the person died whom I would be working for, and he died before I was even sworn in. I was out of school, but waiting to be sworn in, and he died, so I had to start all over. And in that case, I met a lifelong friend, the husband of the woman that I was representing for Francois. And we became friends after that case was over. They never ended up in divorce, and she had me speak at his funeral about a year ago.
What did you like the most about the legal career, legal field at all?
I loved trying the cases that I tried and was able to try and was trusted to try by the people hired me to try them all the way through the 60s until I became heavily obligated in the halls of the legislature. Many of my cases, however, were cases involving women who had been accused of being prostitutes.
Mm.
And I literally ended up being the number one lawyer for a long time, representing hookers. I had a good time doing that.
Can imagine. Successful law career. Why public service? What drew you to public service?
The first introduction to the potential for public service came from John Burton, whom I met in line while enrolling in college. And shortly thereafter, through the process of getting a license to practice law, John Burton went on off to the military. And I, of course, did that one case. But on the day that I did that case, I also had the opportunity to represent a hooker. And nothing pleased me more. But my law school education had equipped me to understand how sometimes twisted the rules are that have been made by the politicians that affects the lives of people. When I absorbed that, plus the skill set that I observed in a fellow named Phil Burton, John Burton's older brother, who was the real politician, I came to the conclusion that while practicing law was one thing, making laws were another. And I chose to include in my portfolio of activities lawmaking rather than just law interpreting.
It appears that a lot of politicians comes from law school and law careers. What are the skills you think are most important that can be transferred from the law career to career in public service?
The discipline of study and research are as important as any skill set required to be a lawyer. But those are the same factors that constitutes the skill set of being a politician. Plus, you have the additional component. To be a good lawyer, you need to be able to communicate verbally with people. You have to write as well, but verbally with people. To be a good politician, you have to communicate, obviously, verbally with people. And in each case, you have to have developed the skill set of good memories. Clearly, good memory is required in both professions.
What is your greatest strength, you think, as a politician?
I listen carefully to everything and to everybody. If you can't listen, you can't succeed in being a politician.
It's amazing that you earned one of the few known politicians who earned respect on both sides of political spectrum. What do you attribute to that you earned that respect?
Hard work, really hard work, but above all else, reliability on content coming from me on all of the subject matters that were before us and are before us. A combination of all those factors, plus the results that you produce in each of the categories constitutes for sure an acknowledgement that you do have skills and that you can get the job done.
Why do you think there's a breakdown of communication between both sides of the political spectrum, as we've seen for the last 10 years? We don't.
The world of lawmaking has dramatically changed in the last 20 years.
Okay.
It wasn't that way, frankly, in this country. This democracy was orchestrated through the production of the Constitution. And the most talented minds were the ones who participated in that effort. Each one of them, whether Jefferson, Lincoln, Washington, or any of those lions, they were really incredible. Their talent clearly was virtually unlimited. They clearly knew why people wanted to live in this country, in this framed democracy that they managed to put together, rather than where the monarchy did everything and controlled everything, period. And that talent is what made this democracy what it is. Of late, those who are controlling the democracy through the electoral process do not appear to be anywhere near the talent of the people that created the democracy. And this democracy, if it is to survive, must have quickly an infusion of people who were talented enough to write something in the Constitution, but equal to the quality of what's already there.
Is there a certain event that happened that about 20 years ago you mentioned that started kind of discourse?
If I had to say, when did we start to lose the commitment to a true democracy? I think when people began to believe and folk that existed before, but were never persuasive enough to gain power. But when people start listening to soothsayers, when people start listening to misrepresentations, when people start thinking more personally about an advantage for themselves, and when the elected types begin to misrepresent to get a vote, the system started to deteriorate. And the growth factor turned out to be more in the people that I just previously described, rather than in the kind of people that created the Constitution. And over probably from the mid-60s, when the struggle was on in the civil rights movement to get the right to vote, you understand that that was the time period when this nation had gone through a civil war in the 1860s, all for the purpose of properly interpreting and openly interpreting the Constitution as instrument for equality of everybody. It's kind of interesting that the people who wrote the Constitution, they wrote in a way that ultimately outlawed slavery but many of them who wrote it were slave owners. And from the transition from being a slave owner into adhering to the right of everybody in this democracy not to be enslaved by anybody else except through the process of the law when you have violated something that has been defined as inappropriate or defined as exploitive or defined as unfair, you're entitled to full protections in this place of freedom. But slowly but surely, there was beginning to arise a collection of people who really do not want equality to be the standard by which we all live. Couldn't get an audience before. Suddenly they begin to get an audience, and those numbers begin to grow. And within the last 60, 70 years, those numbers have grown as interpretations by the Supreme Court of the rules and regulations being pushed by multiple states of this union. All of that is translated into a level of anti-democracy without even calling it anti-democracy.
What's your definition of democracy?
I am firmly of the opinion that that word should be viewed as a catch-all for the Constitution that was written. That was a foundation for all the rules and regulations by which we live in this country. And that's, in my opinion, what at least I and others of my ilk believe when I use the term democracy.
Thank you. What is your proudest achievement?
What's what?
What is your proudest achievement? Whether personal, professional.
I take great pride in the people that I have helped become guidance engines for this democracy. That's what I'm most proud of. People who get elected to public office, like Bill Clinton, people who try to orchestrate the process and advocate for orchestration of the process, like Martin Luther King Jr., people who really were dedicated to helping other people, like my most recent death in my friendship with John Burton. All of those are the people that I admire. Most people would say, well, don't you want to talk about your own achievement? No, I'm far more interested in the spinoffs from my personal career than what I've done, because I don't think that my achievements are worthy of that being the standard.
You don't think they're worthy?
No, I think they're worthy of being the standard, though, is different. I think the people that I support better reflect the standard.
What does loyalty mean to you?
It means that you do not misrepresent to anybody your response to any question put to you about some subject matter that are desired honest answer is to be provided. And if within that answer is a course of action you are to take that is being exhibited by friends or relatives, loyalty requires you to be respectful of and hopefully supportive of for productivity from that relationship.
What would be your advice for a young person who wants to go into public service today?
Above all else, develop the ability to listen. Most people do not have that skill.
Follow-up question. How do you develop the skill to listen if you don't have it? Is that innate ability, or you can develop and foster that in a person?
You simply learn the discipline of paying attention, understanding the words, and if you don't, from that attention, you can ask for clarity. And from clarity comes an understanding of what was being uttered. And from what was being uttered may very well prompt a test of whether or not you can do what's being recommended. But that's only if you listened and understood it.
In addition to listening, ability to listen, do you think charisma is a must for a politician?
I don't, frankly, think that the politician ought to be concerned about that quality. But that quality ought to come from an observer, not the person being observed. At least the acknowledgement of it should come from the observer.
So do you think it should be coached and approached as well by the analytical or campaign team? Or
Well,
no?
I've got to tell you that I think that all of the acquisition of knowledge and understanding that you've gained from listening, and when you react within the framework of that understanding and deliver an answer or deliver an idea or deliver and support a program, a description of your participation will be how you describe that quality.
What do you think Minnie and Anna would say today to you, looking at where you are, what you've achieved, and all these people you lifted up, and all the lives you changed, lives, careers, trajectory, all the contributions you made to the society?
My grandmother and my mother would not give me a passing grade because they wouldn't want me to work even harder on the productive side through all the things that I say I'm ultimately most proud of.
Even seeing the bridge named after you would not matter
Not nearly as much
as it means to every
if I
person.
had been a participant in producing the engineer that built the bridge.
Got it. Are you the same with your children?
No, I'm not the same with my children because I do respond to all of what they require of me, or they'll invite me to participate in. But from my mother and my grandmother, self-drive, just as Waymo does, was the important factor in the development. And that's what I try to steer my youngsters in.
Did you ever want your kids or your nephews, nieces to go into politics? Or maybe they aren't involved?
No, there's one of them that I'm really envisioning may be a candidate for president one of these days. The youngest one, Sydney, might be a candidate for president.
Really?
That's how equipped she is to listen.
I read about working the room, quote unquote. Is that the quality? That's, to me, that's
That
listening.
is one of the qualities.
Incredible. We'll look forward.
Yeah.
We sure need that. Let's move on to a little lighter subject, maybe more. What is your order La Centrale every week? What do you order there when you go to lunch with friends?
At one time, it was always the roast chicken with pomfrets. Now I listen for whatever their specialty is that day, because the people who are in the kitchen, I don't know them as I knew them when I first started, the people that would be in the kitchen when I first started going to Les Centrales with Wilkes and Herb. The guy, Johnny, co-owner, was just an excellent cook. Not quite as good as my mother or my grandmother, but an excellent cook. And if I kept the dishes simple, he made them in every way profound, as I'd like to say. And the cooks these days are not at the same level, but therefore I wait to see what they offering rather than what I knew Johnny could do.
So, boss dice game. Does the winner pick up the check, or is this just a game that you play?
No, the winner is the person who tries to get out of having to pick up the check.
Oh, got it.
That's what you want to do.
That's what you want to do.
You don't want to be the last person standing and dice shaking, because you could end up with
First
a check
out.
you can't afford to pay, or you're not
Got it.
comfortable paying.
Got it.
So that's why it's called boss dice.
Got it. You mentioned mom and grandma's cooking. What was a favorite? Comes to mind. You gotta be
Biscuits.
biscuits. Have you found decent biscuits since then?
Nobody alive.
Nobody.
Nobody.
What is it about family cooking that you cannot replicate?
No, that is absolutely true. So I am still in search of.
Yeah, I recommend. I'm a foodie. I don't know the place to recommend.
Yeah.
I've tried many times.
And always disappointed.
Yes. Yeah. I've read that you made lamb chops for your kids when your wife was away, Sundays or something. Do kids still eat lamb chops? Or they were scarred since that?
I never knew how much they disliked them until they got old enough in conversation. Because the arrangement was because of the nature of my work and my job and where I had to be in the career pursuit. But in order to make sure that there was real consistency in the family in every way, if Blanche wanted to take off, the wife wanted to take off, the mother wanted to take off, in her dancing career, in her teaching career, I had to cover a full day, preferably on Sunday,
Wow.
because church was not part of what she wanted to do, but church was what I wanted to do. And the kids, as they were growing up, had to go to church, like I had to go to church from my mother and my grandmother. And in that regard, breakfast they loved. I'd cook breakfast on Sunday morning. Blanche would be gone already.
What was breakfast? Pancakes?
I'd do hotcakes,
Wow.
pancakes. I would do bacon with pork sausage, and including Jimmy Dean's when they.
All the good stuff.
Yes, I started doing that. I did. I squeezed the orange juice.
Wow.
And on some days, I would have the pork sausage and rice for breakfast instead of just eggs and bacon and syrup. I did all that. And then go to church, get dressed, go to church, and lunchtime, we'd go to one of they love cafeterias. So Moore's Cafeteria on Powell Street was where they finally zeroed in on where they'd like to go on Sunday after church. If they didn't eat at the church, most of the churches, and the particular ones that I went to, had dining rooms, and they had a set of people who cooked for lunch, because there was sometimes church service at 3 o'clock in the afternoon before church service in the evening. They quickly convinced me that going to church service was okay, but it should not take up all their time. And so I enjoyed very much making sure that they got to Moore's. Every Sunday, I cooked lamb chops or rack of lamb, and it was something that I thought was so good because I added vegetables, and the
Caramelized
vegetables
carrots,
was
no?
right, glazed
carrots.
Glazed carrots.
Wow.
And they loved the glazed carrots. I had no dessert skills, so I didn't even attempt dessert skill. I would buy dessert or have dessert made by one of the soul food restaurants in town, and it would be simply either, it could be something like sweet potato pie, which people don't really, I don't think non-black people bother with sweet potato pies. They're not sold in the regular bakeries. Or we do banana pudding I'd have made at one of the places. Or I'd have cobblers, peach cobblers, apple cobblers.
Also hard to find these days.
Almost impossible.
Decent.
Almost impossible.
Unfortunately.
But all those things made for what I thought was a wonderful Sunday. And it was every Sunday until it became impossible for me to keep that schedule, even though it was part of the deal. But that was a long time that schedule was adhered to. And they, I thought, really enjoyed all of it. But no, they enjoyed everything but my cooking.
What a disappointment. You tried so hard.
And they never told me until they were old enough.
Nice kids you have.
To have their vote count. Because we always at meals ate together, had some stories to tell, experience of what they were doing in school or in the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the choirs that they'd sing in, the athletic activities that they were involved in. All those are subject matter. But also, Black history, because Black history was not taught in the schools.
Oh, was not.
No, Black history was not taught in the schools. Unlike the time that I did in Texas, we were taught world history, U.S. history, Texas history, and Negro history. So there were 4 history courses.
And it wasn't standard back then, or
it was standard
30 years ago.
Black schools. But integrated schools didn't become a reality in America till the mid-60s. Although the decision in the Supreme Court, May 17th, 54, Brown versus the Board of Education, implementation took almost 10 years.
10 years.
Before it became universal that schools were integrated. But schools being integrated didn't always carry with it subject matter integration. That was just not part of what they did and how they did it. So the school that I went to, my kids didn't have the benefit from Mineola. They were educated here in California, and they were educated pursuant to the rules here. Mineola had with it the requirement for Negro history. In view of the fact that California didn't have that, I wanted my kids, Blanche's kids, to know Negro history. So as a subject matter for regular dinners of the family, some aspect of Negro history would be on display and would be told, plus the opportunity to read the Black newspaper, like the Sun Reporter here in San Francisco, or to read Ebony magazine that carry with it what Black people all over the world were doing, but especially here in America and in all of the other states, or Jet magazine, which was a little shorter version of Negro history, but it had listed in it regularly the achievements that some Black person had gotten, which became part of what the kids would learn about at dinner time when we discuss those achievements. So Joe Louis wins the heavyweight championship of the world. You didn't exactly get that in the Chronicle or the New York Times. You got that in the Black journals that were published, and in particular, Ebony, Jet, and the Independent, and the Sun Reporter. That's where you got that. You got it at the table at the Brown household. Every meal.
Incredible. That just to imagine today that it was not like that, I don't know, 40 years ago. You met anybody and everybody from all walks of life, celebrities, politicians, Queen of England. Were you ever awestruck by somebody?
I think I was awestruck by almost everybody that I ever had an opportunity to really meet, whom I had read about, or whom I had heard about, or whom I had been, in some manner or another, exposed to their existence. It wasn't television. Radio gave out a lot of information, but you didn't have the social media concepts during my development period that you have today. And so my activities were limited by the availability of material.
What was it like to act opposite Al Pacino in The Godfather III?
I got warned by George Hamilton, who was in the same movie, and he said, "Be careful and be ready, because Al doesn't always uh, know a dialogue,
Hmm.
and so you may have to figure out how not to wait for a particular word or sentence from Al for your line. So you may have to alter your line based on whatever Al says." And he said the worst part of that is that Al may remain silent. So you may have to be, and you're not the pro.
How do you get prepared for that if you're not a professional actor?
Well, when Francis Ford Coppola asked me to play the role, he said that he was not familiar with what really ought to be. And that's why he had asked me. He had tried to follow what had been written with the actor, the professional actor that he had hired to play that role. He was never satisfied. On 3 different shootings in that role. And of course, with regularity, he had been chatting with me, along with other people, at a restaurant called Tosca's here in San Francisco.
Famous.
And since the role was that of a politician, obviously, me not being aware that the constant dialogue I had with him was him learning what it is to be a politician before he would shoot that scene in Godfather III. And he called me up and insisted that I come to Rome for purposes of playing that role. And we discussed the viability of that. We discussed the wardrobe that would be required by me, with me telling him what the right outfit would be for the politician he was trying to put on display. And so that ended up being fun, and I made lifetime friendships with people that I worked with on that film, and then I made half a dozen other films thereafter.
I'm glad you mentioned wardrobe. And the movie won for costume design. You were nowhere near picking up the prize, the award, because you use your own wardrobe, correct?
That is correct. When we had the conversation, he reminded me that his wardrobe person probably would not take my advice as he was taking my advice on the scene, when he described the scene and what would happen in the scene. And I told him a senator would wear, at that time, a 3-piece, dark blue suit, white shirt, and a tie that would match the remainder of that. And he said, well, why don't you bring with you? Because this movie was shot in Rome. Said, bring with you what you would wear as a senator. You're playing a senator, so, but don't be offended if the wardrobe people, and he said, and by the way, they won an Academy Award in the last one. So you're not going to be able to just move them. And we laughed about it, what have you. But sure enough, when I got there, I did all of what I was supposed to do, including meeting with the wardrobe head. And she, of course, instantly said, I understand that you think you know what would be best for wardrobe. What are you talking about? She said, I was told that Francis had a conversation with you about what senators wear. And and you want to wear what you think senators wear. I said, that's all true. But let me tell you, I'm open. So she said, well, I really don't have anybody else do the wardrobe except me. Well, that was good. So she said, so why don't you try on what I have in mind? I did. And then she said, let me see what you have. Let me see what your outfit will look like. So I put it on. She called two other people in. They had a conversation. She said, all right, you topped me. Take that watch off. Take the watch off? Why? She said, for your information, the time period of this movie was before they made that watch. I said, well, what am I doing with watch? You giving it to me. I'm going to wear it. You're going to wear my watch, which was made at the time period.
Wow.
And when you leave Rome to go back to San Francisco, we'll switch watches.
Wow.
That's how I made friends with her.
Oh,
I made friends with
what a great story.
I made friends with the people doing the script. Because, you had those horrible rehearsals. You have to go over and over. You change this word, this delivery. And they shoot so many times. So
Talk about wardrobe. Aren't you tired of being named best dressed in every single newspaper, every single magazine, every single event? Willie Brown is the best dressed man. Are you tired of that?
no.
No. Do you give advice to your friends?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No, because I think they do not understand that dressing is a serious matter for me. And if you're not going to be consistent with the effort, then you have no business asking me, how should you dress? Because sometimes during the course of any given day, I may change 3 times.
Wow. Depending on what's going on in your day?
Well, yes and no, depending on the weather, depending on the sunshine, depending on, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. And so if I show up and if I get there early enough and observe that there's no way that I should have on that color based on what I see other people.
What's your
So
take on
I will go alter my whole presence.
What's your take on tuxedos and Vans, or tuxedos and Nike?
I love tuxedos.
With Nike sneakers?
No,
Okay.
no way. Sneakers are casual items to be worn appropriately with casual, complementary examples of the other parts of your wardrobe for that occasion. You should not be doing sneakers with any of the suit arrangements, period. Except now people don't buy regular shoes as much as they did at one time. It's almost like when they stopped drinking wine, they stopped wearing shoes and started wearing tennis shoes.
Yeah.
I have obviously always have had tennis, but I use them sparingly and, in my opinion, most appropriately and preferably with some form of casual trousers, jeans, or something else equally as complimentary and enhanced by sneakers. So I'm a sneaker advocate. I'm a sneaker owner. I really, and I, dress But I do not, for an example, put a sport coat on with sneakers.
What is your measure of success, Mayor Brown?
Personal satisfaction of what you set out to do. And did you do it? Not the measurement from others.
Are you a successful man in that regard?
I think so.
Please describe your life in one word.
Awesome.
The last question I ask all my guests. What do you find extraordinary in every day?
I don't find extraordinary in everything. Matter of fact, it's difficult to find extraordinary, period.
That was Willie Brown. Mayor Brown, thank you very much for joining us. I truly appreciate this, enjoy this conversation with you.
And you realize I love to talk.